welcome to my human design channel. My name is Zsuzsi. This is HD by Z. I'm so excited you're here, but if you're new, I just want to let you know that this is a space for anyone and everyone who's obsessed with human design like I am. Mostly I make videos about celebrity charts and their relationships. I also talk about the system itself, and occasionally I interview people I've worked with in the past so you can get an idea of what human design can do for you. I had planned to make a video today about another couple, but then Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn broke up. And so, of course, I wanted to understand what it was about them that drew them to each other, why they might have had a 6-year relationship that didn't end in marriage, and could they get back together again? And what I found was fascinating, as always. But before we get into all of that, I just want to remind you all that if you want to work with me, all of my information will be in the show notes in a master link below. On my website, you'll see that I do personal readings, I do relationship readings, I do relationship coaching, and I run a women's empowerment group called The Beehive, where you can get access to all of my workshops, a weekly coaching call. We just started a personal development book club in there, and we have a group chat that we're on all day long. It's so much fun. I'd love for you to check that out and join us if you feel called. And if you want to work with me in person, I'm hosting a retreat July 13th through 17th in beautiful Mount Shasta, California. It's a really mystical place. The retreat itself is going to be an incredible journey inward. I'm doing it with a couple of my other friends. We'll be doing yoga, we'll be doing sound healing, and of course, we'll be doing a hike to the mountain. So if you want more information about that, that will also be in the show notes. I'd love for you to check that out. So now let's get into Taylor and Joe. So the story goes that Taylor and Joe were very hush-hush in the beginning of their relationship. So we're not even sure when they started dating, but we learned about their relationship in early 2017. She had been sort of sequestered, doing her own thing, writing the album Reputation, and this was a really new approach to relationships for Taylor because it had been very publicly known about all of her various dating, which is what we do in our 20s, but most of us aren't famous, so it's not really a big deal. But this time she really tried to keep it on the down low and keep it to herself. And so we didn't know a lot about these two until recently when she started being more public about things. And then a couple of weeks ago, it was announced that they were on the rocks and now they've broken up. And I wanted to understand what might have been the cause of that. So a couple of articles that I found online quote that, it was her fame and also their differences in their personalities that ultimately ended the relationship. But is that it? Could they possibly get back together? Because, that's what people do. They break up, they realize that they can't live without each other, and then they make up again. So let's see if there's a possibility of that. Why don't we start with Taylor's chart? All right, so this is Taylor Swift. She is a projector. She is splenic authority, single definition, 5-1 profile on the left angle cross of confrontation. So right off the bat, when you think of the word confrontation, and, we have to look at her sun earth positions here in order to understand what this even means. She's the ruler, she's the egoist. This is part of her definition. And I would venture to guess that she probably wore the pants in this relationship. I mean, I hate to make it so basic when it comes to gender roles and things like that, but Taylor's the 5-1 profile here, and that makes her a leader. It makes somebody that people look up to. I've said this before many times. Almost every single famous diva on the planet is a 5-1 profile or has a 5 in their profile. Lady Gaga, Madonna, Whitney Houston, Adele, Christina Aguilera. And then Miley Cyrus is a 2-5. So yeah, there's a lot of divas out there who have this 5 in their profile. So that's what the 5th line is. These are people that we look up to. These are people we see as larger than life. And Taylor Swift is certainly larger than life. She's been famous for most of her adult life. In fact, before she was an adult. She also has this channel of judgment, which, has certain connotations. But in interpersonal relationships, it can feel like the person is judging you and your decisions, even when they're not actually doing that. So that's something potentially for her to look out for. Obviously, she's able to hold long-term committed relationships since this was around 6 years long, which is a significant amount of time, especially in Hollywood. So let's take a look at Joe and look at what was going on underneath the surface there. All right, so this is Joe. Right off the bat, I want to say that I could not find accurate birth time for him, but I checked all along the day, and odds are he is a manifesting generator, sacral authority, single definition, 3-5 profile on the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. Most of this stuff does not change over the course of the day. And so the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix is a person who tends to burn it all down and start over. And that might be what he's doing right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's burnt the bridge all the way as this 3-5 profile. Now, the article that I found talked about the fact that these two have had a rocky relationship. It hasn't been all smooth just because it hasn't been in the press. And so they have broken the bond, 3rd line, bonds made and broken, and made it again many, many times. We were just not privy to that at those times. So this is potentially just another one of those times. And as a sleeping phoenix burning it all down, the potential is that they could rebuild, but it would have to be in a different way, right? It would have to be in a new setting. It would have to be with new rules. And that is something very difficult for 2 people to do, I'll be honest with you. And these 2 are both single definition, which means all of their centers are connected through a channel. And that usually makes people very self-contained. 2 single definition people have a really good chance of making it in terms of partnership because it's not imbalanced in the sense that one person takes the partnership more seriously than the other or needs the partnership more intensely than the other. So now let's take a look at them together. All right, so this 5-1 projector and this 3-5 manifesting generator are 8 and 1, have some fun. This is 8 centers defined with an open head center. This can be very entertaining. They could have a very fun, loving relationship, not take things too seriously. They have 4 electromagnetic connections, 2 of which I think are really significant. They have this channel of mating together. This is a lot about intimacy. This is like an instant spark in the relationship. I'm sure that as soon as they met each other, they just told each other everything, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And also they have this channel of focus and concentration together. So together they can be very focused on each other, or they can be very focused on a project together. Who knows what that might have been? I understand that actually Joe is also a songwriter, so potentially that was part of it. And then they have a bunch of the integration connections here, which is more of an individual chemistry. And so I don't necessarily see it as something that is very connective for people, but I do see that there's potential there for them to respect one another's individuality, which is really important. But according to sources, what ended up breaking these 2 up ultimately was the limelight. Taylor is far more famous than Joe has ever been, and I can see why that might be a problem. So is this a case of just typical jealousy? Like the fact that Taylor is the superstar and Joe is an actor who admittedly is growing in fame and recognition. He was in the show Conversations with Friends, which was excellent. He is a very good actor in his own right, so I can definitely see him expanding in his career, but nothing compared to what Taylor has experienced over the course of the past decade plus. So what is that all about? Well, the thing about projectors is that they have a focused aura, right? Joe is a manifesting generator. And so I'm sure that when they were sequestered together, when it was just the two of them, he got all the focus. He got all of that projector attention and recognition and potentially love and affection. But it's very difficult to share a projector with the rest of the world because you get used to that focus, especially since at first it was just the two of them because she was hiding out writing her album. Then it was just the two of them quarantined together during COVID. So when it was just them two, I'm sure that they were in their own like little love bubble and nothing could really break through that. But now that we've come out of COVID and now that Taylor's back in the spotlight again, it was probably very difficult because you can feel, I know from personal experience, you can really feel when a projector's focus is elsewhere. And if they knew this, if they had this awareness in their relationship, then Joe might not take it so personally. But as it happens, they probably don't know this. And so that could have been probably a big source of contention between the two of them. I also want to say that there's a lot of compromise here, and the compromise is weighted a lot more in Taylor's favor. So she has the channel of judgment, like I spoke about, and she has the channel of struggle, the 28-38, and Joe only has 38. So he's compromised to her in that way. And when you have a compromise like that, you're compromised to what that person wants to struggle with. And struggling in this case means struggling to be yourself, struggling to be self-expressed. It's an individuality. And so I can see it being difficult for Joe to constantly be caught up in what Taylor wants to struggle with. And that could be, her music, that could be her career, that could be a number of different things that don't involve him. And getting caught up in somebody else's struggle can be very frustrating, which is his not self themes. And then she can become bitter when she feels like her partner isn't supportive of her or doesn't necessarily see her, which is difficult enough for a fifth line to feel like, the whole world sees them differently than who they truly feel that they are. What do you think the word reputation is about? There's an entire album she wrote about it. Not to mention, Taylor has to feel invited into the relationship. This is something that doesn't just happen during the courtship period. It's not just about when they first got together. It's like a continual thing that projectors need. Projectors need a lot of our energy. They need a lot of our attention in relationships, whether that be friendships or mother-daughter relationships. Hi, Mom. Or maybe it's a partnership in which the female does get a lot of attention from the outside world, i.e. Taylor, but the attention that she really wants is the person closest to her, which in this case was Joe. Now, like I said, Joe is a third line, and so he's here to make bonds and break them and then make them again. And so if they can come back together in a different way, in a way that feels new and exciting and not like their old relationship, then I can absolutely see the two of them making this work. That being said, a lot of the time in human design, we say that type for type is best. Right? So it's not impossible to make a relationship work with somebody else. That's exactly why I do relationship analysis, is because I can help you understand how the two of you can cooperate together in a way that neither party feels left out or stifled in some way or gypped So in the world that's unaware of human design and doesn't necessarily understand how different these two types are, that's another thing cited in these articles, is that they were simply so different personality-wise that they went their separate ways, is that it's really the type for type relationships that I've analyzed on this channel without the knowledge of what's going on underneath the surface that have that longevity, that have the ability to stay strong over the course of many, many years because it's easier. That's all it is. It's just easier. It's all up to Taylor. What does she want to struggle with? Does she want to struggle with how different Joe is from her? Or does she prefer to have a more symbiotic relationship with somebody who understands the needs of a projector because they are one? I guess only time will tell. All right, guys, I think this is a really good place to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. I would love to hear your comments about what you think in terms of the possibility of these two reconnecting. And I'd also love to hear what couples you'd like me to analyze next. I have gotten a lot of requests to do more old Hollywood couples, and so I'll be looking into that for sure in the future. Thank you so much again for being here. Until next time, ciao for now.